If this video found its way to you today, it's no accident. There's something stirring in your unconscious mind. A preparation, a readiness, a transformation that's been quietly unfolding beneath the surface of your awareness. Carl Jung would tell you that synchronicities like this aren't mere coincidences. They're meaningful connections between your inner world and outer reality, signposts on the journey toward wholeness. You're here because somewhere deep within, you're becoming ready to meet your soulmate. Not the Hollywood version of a soulmate, not your other half or your completion, but something far more profound and, paradoxically, more challenging. You're approaching the threshold of a meeting that will fundamentally change who you are. But first, you need to understand what Jung really meant about love, the self, and the alchemical transformation that occurs when two individuated beings come together. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. Carl Jung believed that you cannot truly meet your soulmate until you've met yourself. Jung spent his entire career studying what he called the individuation process, the journey towards psychological wholeness and self-realization. He discovered that most people live their lives wearing masks, playing roles, projecting their unconscious contents onto others, and remaining strangers to their own depths. We chase relationships to fill voids, to complete ourselves, to escape loneliness. But these pursuits inevitably fail because we're asking another person to do the work that only we can do. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." But here's the critical point. Transformation can only occur between two substances that have their own distinct properties. If you don't know who you are, if you haven't done the inner work, if you're still unconscious of your shadow, your anima or animus, your complexes and wounds, then what enters the relationship isn't you. It's a collection of projections, defenses, and unmet childhood needs. The individuation process requires brutal honesty. It demands that you descend into your own underworld and confront everything you've been running from. Jung called this shadow work, the integration of all the parts of yourself you've rejected, denied, or hidden away. Your anger, your selfishness, your vulnerability, your shame, the parts that terrify you, the parts that don't fit the image you've constructed. Why is this necessary before meeting your soulmate? Because whatever you haven't integrated in yourself, you will project onto your partner. Your unexamined wounds will become their burden. Your disowned qualities will appear in them, and you'll either worship or despise them for it. You'll fall in love with a fantasy, not a person. If this video found you, you're likely already deep in this process, perhaps without even realizing it. Maybe you've been through heartbreak that shattered your illusions. Maybe you've been alone for a while, not by choice at first, but you've discovered something valuable in that solitude. Maybe you've been in therapy doing shadow work, questioning everything you thought you knew about yourself and love. This isn't comfortable work. Jung himself went through what he called his confrontation with the unconscious, a period of psychological crisis that nearly broke him, but ultimately became the foundation of his life's work. He emerged from that dark night, understanding that the journey inward isn't optional if we want to live authentically and love consciously. You've been doing this work, whether you call it that or not. You've been dismantling old patterns. You've been sitting with your loneliness instead of running from it. You've been learning to love yourself, not in the superficial Instagram affirmation sense, but in the deep, accepting way that includes all your flaws and darkness. And here's what Jung discovered. The moment you stop desperately seeking completion from another person, the moment you become genuinely whole within yourself, that's precisely when you become ready to meet your true counterpart. Now we arrive at one of Jung's most profound and misunderstood concepts, the anima and animus. Jung believed that within every man exists an unconscious feminine component, the anima, and within every woman exists an unconscious masculine component, the animus. These aren't about gender stereotypes or traditional roles. They're archetypal energies, ways of being and perceiving that exist in all humans regardless of gender identity. The anima in a man represents his relationship to the unconscious, his emotional life, his creativity, his capacity for connection and intuition. The animus in a woman represents her capacity for logic, assertion, spiritual seeking, and penetrating insight. But more importantly, these inner figures represent our soul image, the bridge between our conscious ego and our deeper self. Here's where it gets fascinating. Jung observed that we tend to fall in love with people who embody our projected anima or animus. A man sees in a woman the feminine qualities he hasn't integrated in himself. A woman sees in a man the masculine qualities she hasn't owned. This is why early love feels so magical, so fated. You're literally seeing your own soul reflected back to you. But this creates a problem. If you haven't done the work to develop a conscious relationship with your own inner anima or animus, you'll remain trapped in projection. You'll expect your partner to be the embodiment of all your unconscious qualities. You'll need them to be your muse, your inspiration, your motivation, your emotional processor, your decision maker, whatever role your undeveloped inner counterpart should be playing. And they'll fail. They must fail, because they're a real person, not an archetype. Jung observed this pattern playing out repeatedly in relationships. The enchantment of early love, what he called falling into the anima/animus, eventually gives way to disillusionment when the real person can't sustain the projection. This is where most relationships either end or deteriorate into mutual resentment. But there's another possibility, the one you're preparing for. When you've done the inner work, when you've developed a conscious relationship with your own anima or animus, something remarkable happens. You stop needing your partner to carry your projections. You can love them as they actually are, not as your unconscious needs them to be. A man who has integrated his anima doesn't need a woman to access his emotions. He's already in touch with them. He doesn't need her to be his muse. He's found his own creative source. He can appreciate her feminine qualities without requiring her to embody femininity for him. A woman who has integrated her animus doesn't need a man to make her feel safe, directed, or spiritually connected. She's developed her own inner authority. She can appreciate his masculine qualities without needing him to be the sole carrier of strength and purpose in her life. When two people who have done this work come together, they experience what Jung called the Show, the sacred union. Not a merging where boundaries dissolve and identities blur, but a meeting of two wholes. Each person remains fundamentally themselves while something new, something greater, emerges between them. This is the relationship you're preparing for, not the one where you lose yourself in another person, but the one where you find yourself more deeply through conscious connection. If this video found you now, it's likely because you've been working on this integration, perhaps without knowing these terms. You've been developing your own inner masculine or feminine. You've been becoming whole, and that wholeness is what makes you ready. Jung's concept of synchronicity might explain why you're watching this video right now. Synchronicity, as Jung defined it, is a meaningful coincidence. Events that are connected not by cause and effect, but by meaning. You think of someone, and they call. You need to know something, and a book falls open to exactly the right page. You're ready for a certain relationship, and someone appears. Jung didn't believe these were supernatural occurrences. He believed they revealed a fundamental truth about reality, that the psyche and the external world are not as separate as we think. There's a dimension where inner and outer, subjective and objective, interpenetrate. When you're undergoing significant psychological transformation, when you're individuating, synchronicities increase because you're becoming more aligned with your deeper self. The reason you can't force your soulmate to appear is the same reason you can't force synchronicities to occur. They emerge from a deeper order, a timing that operates beyond ego control. Your conscious mind can't manufacture readiness. Your willpower can't accelerate the individuation process. You can do the work, yes, but the transformation itself happens in its own time, following patterns that your unconscious understands better than your ego. This is why every attempt to manifest a relationship from a place of desperation or incompleteness fails. You can't trick the universe. You can't fake psychological readiness. The energy you put out, rooted in lack, need, fear of being alone, only attracts situations that mirror that frequency. But something shifts when you genuinely become whole within yourself. It's not that you suddenly broadcast, "I'm ready for a relationship," into the cosmic void. It's subtler and more profound. You begin moving through the world differently. You make different choices. You're drawn to different places. You notice different people. You radiate a different energy, not of seeking, but of being. And here's what Jung observed. When two people who have both reached a certain level of individuation exist in the same general space and time, there's an almost magnetic quality to their eventual meeting. Not because of fate or destiny in the predetermined sense, but because they're both operating from a similar frequency of consciousness. They're both asking similar questions, pursuing similar depths, embodying similar qualities of presence. The synchronicities multiply. You take a class you weren't planning to take. You attend an event that wasn't on your radar. You say yes to an invitation you'd normally decline. You're following subtle impulses, trusting your intuition more than your logical planning. And suddenly there they are, this person who feels strangely familiar, who sees you in a way that's both comfortable and electrifying. Jung would tell you that this meeting was in preparation long before you consciously knew it. The work you've been doing on yourself, the relationships you've ended, the patterns you've broken, the therapy sessions, the dark nights of the soul, all of it has been preparation for this encounter. The timing isn't random. You couldn't have met this person 3 years ago because you weren't ready 3 years ago. You would have repeated old patterns, projected unexamined contents, and either passed each other by or created another painful learning experience. But now you're ready. That's why this video found you. That's why your intuition is heightened. That's why you have this strange sense of anticipation, like something significant is approaching. Let's address the term soulmate directly, because Jung would have had a complex relationship with this word. In popular culture, a soulmate is often portrayed as someone who completes you, who makes life easy, who agrees with everything you say and want. This is psychological fantasy, the projection of the perfect parent or the idealized lover who will finally heal all your wounds and make you feel eternally safe. Jung's understanding was radically different and far more challenging. Your true soulmate, the one you're becoming ready to meet, will be your greatest mirror. They will reflect back to you not just your light, but your remaining shadow. They will trigger your deepest wounds so you can heal them. They will challenge your defenses, question your assumptions, and refuse to play the roles you unconsciously try to assign them. This sounds terrible, doesn't it? Why would you want such a relationship? Because this is how real transformation happens. This is how love becomes a spiritual practice, not just an emotional high. Jung understood that the most profound growth occurs at the friction points, in the places where two distinct realities meet and must learn to coexist without either person losing themselves. Your soulmate won't be your clone. They won't think exactly like you, want exactly what you want, or process the world in your preferred way. In fact, they'll likely embody qualities that feel foreign to you, and that's precisely why the relationship has such transformative potential. If you've done your individuation work, you'll be able to tolerate this difference without feeling threatened by it. You'll be curious rather than defensive. You'll see their otherness as an opportunity to expand your own consciousness rather than as a problem to fix or a flaw to criticize. But here's the crucial point. This kind of relationship only works when both people have reached a certain level of psychological maturity. If only one person has done their inner work, the relationship becomes unbalanced. One person growing and the other resisting. One person taking responsibility for their triggers while the other endlessly blames. The relationship you're preparing for requires two individuated people. Two people who have faced their shadows. Two people who can take responsibility for their own wounds without making their partner responsible for healing them. Two people who can be both intimate and autonomous, connected and free. Jung called this the union of opposites, not in the sense that you're looking for someone completely unlike you, but that you can hold the tension between unity and differentiation, between merging and maintaining selfhood. This is the alchemical marriage he wrote about, the transformation that happens when two wholes come together and create something greater than either could achieve alone. Your soulmate will see through your personas, the masks you wear, the ways you perform, the images you've constructed. This can feel terrifying if you're still identified with those masks. But if you've done your work, if you've already seen through them yourself, their clear sight will feel like relief. Finally, someone who loves you as you actually are, not as you pretend to be. They'll also hold up a mirror to your remaining growth edges. Maybe you still struggle with vulnerability. Maybe you're overly independent or overly dependent in subtle ways. Maybe you have blind spots around control, or people-pleasing, or emotional availability. Your soulmate won't necessarily point these out directly, though they might. More often, these patterns will simply become impossible to maintain in the relationship. The old strategies won't work. You'll have to develop new capacities. This is why the right person at the wrong time never works out. You need to be ready for this level of mirroring, this degree of exposure and challenge. You need to have developed enough inner stability that you won't collapse or flee when your remaining unconscious patterns get activated. So, how do you know you're truly ready? Jung would point to several indicators. First, you're comfortable being alone, not resigned to solitude, not white-knuckling through loneliness, but genuinely at peace with your own company. You've built a life that feels full and meaningful without a partner. You have pursuits that engage you, relationships that nourish you, a sense of purpose that comes from within. This is crucial because it means you're seeking a partner from wholeness, not lack. Second, you've developed a conscious relationship with your unconscious. You pay attention to your dreams. You notice your patterns. You can observe your triggers without being completely overwhelmed by them. When you react strongly to something, you have the capacity to ask yourself, what's really happening here? What old wound is being activated? What projection might I be engaging in? This self-awareness is essential for conscious relationship. Third, you've grieved your past relationships and extracted their lessons. You're not carrying bitterness, resentment, or unresolved feelings that will poison new connection. You can look back at your relationship history and see your own contributions to what went wrong, not just your partner's failures. You've taken responsibility for your patterns and actively worked to change them. Fourth, you have clear boundaries and can articulate your needs. You know what you're willing to compromise on and what you're not. You understand that boundaries aren't walls. They're the containers that make true intimacy possible. You've learned to say no, to disappoint others when necessary, to prioritize your own well-being without guilt. Paradoxically, this capacity for healthy selfishness makes you better equipped for genuine partnership. Fifth, you can tolerate ambiguity and paradox. You've moved beyond black and white thinking, either-or frameworks, and the need for constant certainty. You understand that people can be both loving and flawed, that relationships can be both challenging and worthwhile, that commitment can coexist with freedom. This psychological flexibility is essential for navigating the complexities of real relationship. Sixth, you feel a quality of ripeness, of fullness. It's hard to describe this precisely, but there's a sense of having arrived at something within yourself. Not that you're perfect or finished. Individuation is a lifelong process, but that you've completed a significant chapter. You're not the person you were 5 years ago. Something has fundamentally shifted. And finally, synchronicities are increasing. You're noticing meaningful coincidences, subtle guidance, doors opening where they were previously closed. You're being drawn to new places, new activities, new circles of people. You're following intuitive impulses more readily. There's a quality of flow in your life that wasn't there before. If most of these indicators resonate with you, you're likely in that liminal space, the threshold period before a significant meeting. You're being prepared, even if you can't see exactly how or when. When you do meet this person, and you will, it probably won't be like the movies. There might not be fireworks or love at first sight. In fact, Jung would suggest that the most significant connections often begin quietly, almost unassumingly. You might meet them and think, "Oh, that's interesting," without the overwhelming passion or instant certainty that characterizes projection-based attraction. What you'll likely notice instead is recognition, a sense of familiarity that doesn't come from having known them before, but from recognizing in them someone who operates from a similar depth, someone who has clearly done their own work, someone who sees you, really sees you, in a way that feels both intimate and respectful. The early phase might feel surprisingly calm. There's attraction, yes, but it's not desperate or consuming. There's interest, but you're not obsessing or losing yourself. You can think clearly. You can still tend to the other important areas of your life. This is actually a very good sign. It means you're not in the grip of projection or unconscious compulsion. As you spend more time together, you'll start to notice the quality of your interactions. Conversations go deep quickly without feeling forced. Silences are comfortable. You can be yourself without performing or managing impressions. They challenge you, but in ways that feel growthful rather than diminishing. You challenge them. There's reciprocity, mutuality, respect. You'll also notice that your triggers get activated, because they must. Any intimate relationship will bring up your remaining unconscious material. But here's the difference. You'll be able to name what's happening. I'm feeling anxious because this reminds me of... Or, I notice I'm pulling away because... And crucially, they'll be able to do the same. Instead of acting out your patterns unconsciously, you're both bringing awareness to them. Conflicts won't be absent, but they'll be navigable. You'll be able to repair ruptures. You'll both take responsibility for your contributions to difficulties. You'll be able to say, "I'm sorry," and "I see how that impacted you," without defensiveness. These might sound like basic skills, but they're actually quite advanced and can only emerge from significant inner work. The relationship will also have a quality of destiny to it, not in the sense that it was predetermined by external forces, but in the sense that it feels deeply right, aligned with who you're becoming. You'll have moments of profound recognition. Of course this. How could it be otherwise? Jung believed that significant relationships are part of our individuation journey. Your soulmate arrives not to save you from your journey, but to accompany you more deeply into it. They become a partner in consciousness, someone with whom you can explore the depths of what it means to be human. Here's something crucial that Jung would want you to understand. Meeting your soulmate doesn't mean the work is over. In many ways, it's just beginning. The relationship itself becomes the next phase of your individuation process. All the theory and insight you've developed while alone must now be lived out in relationship. Your capacity for love, vulnerability, boundaries, and authentic connection will be tested and refined in ways that solo inner work simply can't replicate. You'll discover unconscious patterns you didn't know you had. You'll face choices between comfort and growth, between self-preservation and intimacy, between old protective strategies and new vulnerable honesty. The relationship will become a crucible, an alchemical vessel in which transformation occurs. This is why Jung emphasized that the Konijungshow, the sacred marriage, isn't a one-time event, but an ongoing process. It's not about finding the right person and then coasting. It's about two people continuously choosing consciousness, continuously doing their inner work, continuously bringing their best selves to the relationship, while also allowing space for their humanity and imperfection. There will be times when the relationship feels easy, flowing, delightful. And there will be times when it feels challenging, confusing, or triggering. Both are necessary. Both are part of the transformative process. Your job, and this is crucial, is not to make the relationship comfortable all the time. Your job is to stay conscious, to keep choosing awareness over unconsciousness, responsibility over blame, growth over stagnation. To see your partner as a separate person on their own journey, not as an extension of yourself or an object for your needs. Jung would also remind you that no human relationship, however profound, can be your ultimate source of meaning or completion. That must still come from your own inner work, your own connection to the self. What Jung called the God image within, the center of psychological wholeness that transcends ego consciousness. Your soulmate can be a profound companion on your journey toward that wholeness, but they cannot walk that path for you. You must maintain your own spiritual practice, your own creative pursuits, your own friendships and interests. The healthiest partnerships are built by two people who remain whole individuals while also creating a union. This might sound paradoxical. Remain separate while also uniting. But this is the essential tension that conscious relationship holds. You're together, and you're still yourself. You're committed, and you're still free. You're intimate, and you maintain boundaries. This dance between unity and autonomy is the heart of mature love. If you're watching this video and wondering, when will I meet them? How will I know? What if I miss them? Take a breath. Jung would tell you that the unconscious is already orchestrating this meeting. Your work is not to force, control, or anxiously seek. Your work is to continue your own individuation, to stay open and present, to follow the subtle guidance that arises from within. Trust that the person you're meant to meet is also preparing. They're doing their own inner work. They're facing their own shadows. They're becoming ready in their own way and time. You don't need to find them, because you're both being drawn toward a meeting that's already in process at a level deeper than conscious awareness. This doesn't mean you should be passive. Continue living fully. Say yes to new experiences. Follow your genuine interests. Be in places that align with who you're becoming. But do these things for their own sake, not as strategies to meet someone. The energy must be authentic, rooted in your own becoming rather than in seeking. And when you do meet, whether it's tomorrow or 6 months from now, you'll recognize it, not necessarily with trumpets and fanfare, but with that quiet, deep knowing that comes from the self. You'll feel it in your body. You'll see it in the synchronicities. You'll know. Until then, be patient with yourself. Trust the process. Continue the inner work. Keep becoming more fully yourself. This is not wasted time. Every moment of your individuation is preparing you for the conscious relationship you desire. Carl Jung spent his life exploring the depths of the human psyche, and one of his most profound conclusions was this: we are all on a journey toward wholeness, toward integration, toward becoming who we really are beneath all our conditioning and defenses. Relationships, particularly the deep soul connections we call soulmate relationships, are not distractions from this journey. They're part of it. They're sacred encounters that accelerate our growth, challenge our unconsciousness, and invite us into new levels of authenticity and love. If this video found you today, honor what that might mean. You're in a significant transition. You're approaching a threshold. You've done work that many people never do, the brave, difficult work of facing yourself honestly and choosing growth over comfort. The meeting you're preparing for will be unlike anything you've experienced before, because you are unlike anything you've been before. You've changed, you've grown, you've individuated, and now you're ready for a love that matches the depth you've cultivated within yourself. So, continue your path, stay present, trust the timing, do your work, be yourself, fully and unapologetically. The rest will unfold as it must. Jung believed in the wisdom of the unconscious, in the meaningful patterns that shape our lives beneath the surface of ordinary awareness. He would tell you that nothing that has led you to this moment has been wasted. Every heartbreak, every lesson, every moment of solitude and struggle, all of it has been preparation. You're ready, perhaps not perfectly, but genuinely, and somewhere, someone else is becoming ready too. The universe, or whatever you want to call that mysterious intelligence that orchestrates meaningful coincidence, is already bringing you together. Trust that. Trust yourself. And trust that when the meeting happens, you'll have everything you need to show up for it fully. The journey continues, and you're exactly where you need to be.